Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
This is the digital asset investor. The other night I was talking to my wife. She had come back from the grocery store and she was going on about how expensive that groceries had gotten. And I didn't pay much attention to it because normally I'm not doing the grocery shopping. Every once in a while I do. But this weekend I went out to eat at a Mexican restaurant, and when I got the bill, I was, because I love a margarita, and when I got the bill, it was at least, whereas normally for my family it might be $40, it was more like $50 or $55, and I immediately noticed that it was more expensive than it had been in the past. And recently we've seen one or two of the Mexican restaurants go out of business, and we're down to one now. And but anyway, the point is that I'm seeing prices of everything going up across the board in my community. And to be honest, I'm surprised that it's taken this long. I mean, since the financial crisis, and I've talked about this before, since the financial crisis, our governments across the world have done nothing but put us further and further into debt, printed money, and it's amazing. And they've kept interest rates artificially low for way too long. Your average recession, I believe, is typically, historically happens every 6 years. We've gone over 10 years without a recession, and it's all because it's been artificially tamped down. But I'm starting to see articles about inflation. Now, the reason I bring this up is because I tell you all the time about how I think that XRP and digital assets are going to be huge, and they are. And but I talk all the time about how they're going to be huge because of the fact that it's a new asset class, and that Wall Street is gearing up to completely come in, both retail and institutional. But I also talk about why XRP is going to be so huge, because it's going to have a use case where it's used by banks and remittance companies, and there will be many other use cases. It's a world-changing technology. But what I don't talk about is as often is the economy and the state of the world economically, geopolitically as well, and the massive storm of a reaction to what the governments of the world have done to destroy the economies of the world. The politicians, what they've done to completely destroy countries across the world monetarily, probably more than any of them, the United States, if not Japan. And so today I wanted to go through with you. I noticed an article this weekend that really got me to thinking, and I wanted to go through it with you so that you can see. I had someone on one of my comment threads, and they said, what do you think it will cause the next bull run in XRP? And the truth of the matter is, it could be a variety of things, but what I think is going to set off the biggest bull run is going to be fear. I believe that digital assets will become very similar but better than gold in terms of a fear trade. And I'm going to show you why, and I'll show you how it has actually happened in the past, and I'll also show you how there's a flash of seeing it happen right now. So let's start with this next article. I'm gonna delete these as I go because I have so many windows pulled up that I want to show you that it's trying to slow my computer down. The next one, and this is the article that really got me to think about this this weekend. Not that article, this article. I got thinking about this because I saw this come across. it was talking about the volumes of digital assets had surged in Turkey on their crypto exchanges because the lira, their currency, was tanking. And what's going on from what I've read is the Turkey's leader is in a tiff with Trump. I believe they've got United States. They've put one of our people in prison. I don't know if it was a priest or somebody. They had put somebody in prison, but anyway, they were talking about how Trump and the Turkey leader had some. They were having a tiff, and so anyway, but that's not the core of what's causing Turkey to the lira to tank. It's a combination of things, including their debt and their economic issues. But what I want you to see is how they relate this to the crypto market, and they've got a guy, and I want this quote right here. You need to let sink in. If you're national, this is a quote from a guy, I believe from Twitter, about this situation. He says, if your national currency is falling like this, or you don't trust centralized currencies and banks, what can you do? You should be your own bank. And I'm sure people all around the world will realize that soon. And so what he's saying is, here these people are. If you can imagine what you would feel like. Let's say you've saved $50,000 in your currency, and all of a sudden, because of your politicians that are running your government, imagine that your $50,000 overnight is worth $40,000 or $30,000. What do? You immediately start scrambling to figure out where you can put that would be more stable or deflationary. Well, guess where you can do that? Digital assets. Most digital assets are created to be deflationary, like Ripple or Bitcoin. They're created to be deflationary, and so since they're not making any more of them, or there's a limited amount, it will become a great place for investors to flee. Now, right now, in the short run, maybe many people are scared of digital assets, but that will change over time as more and more money flows in there and they become more stable. All right, I'm moving on because I want you to really let it sink in about what's going on over there in Turkey. How a currency meltdown in Turkey threatens Europe. So what they're talking about is contagion. And the dirty little secret is that all of those countries, not just Europe, but the United States, everywhere across the world, everyone has become debt-ridden countries. All of them. Or pretty much all of them. And so what they're talking about here is this could easily spill over into Europe and the world at large and create a world, in my opinion, a world depression. Worse than a depression. That's what I think the result of all this. Remember, this all goes back to the financial crisis. The financial crisis was a debt. A big, huge part of that was debt. It was a debt crisis. And the debts, the countries that claimed that they got us out of the financial crisis, they did nothing more than pile on more debt. And then they said, oh, see, it's all fixed. It is not fixed. It was not fixed. All they did is put all of us in more and more debt. So do not forget that, because debt, what I'm going to show you today, is that when they put you in debt, against your will in many cases, when they put the governments of the world put us in debt, don't think for a minute that they don't expect you to be the one that helps bail it out. It will become your patriotic duty, because they did it for you, of course, right? Okay, moving on. And I had a couple more things on this Turkey that I just wanted to illustrate to you how this is really a tidal wave that's coming across the world right now. Turkish lira collapse continues, hits new record low as central bank takes steps to ease the pain. And here I want to make I had read another article. Let me get rid of this one. It may be the next one. But I had read another article where it said that the Central Bank of Turkey did not want to raise interest rates. Well, that's probably because they're in as much debt as these other countries. Well, Think about this for a minute. For the last 10 years, all of the countries of the world, the United States is one of the leaders, have increased their debts by multiples, okay? And they've left interest rates at almost zero. They've put all of the responsible savers of the world in a position where if you want to do the responsible thing, you're kind of out of options, because with interest rates where they are, your savings generate almost nothing. They've put us in a real bind. Well, if you raise interest rates after you've lopped on debt after debt after debt on all these countries, at some point it's unsustainable to carry that debt load. In my opinion, the United States, as well as many other countries across the world, in my opinion, the dirty little secret is that they can't pay off their debts and never will pay off their debts. What they can do and what they will do is try to manage their debts, manage the debt payments. And how do you do that as interest rates? You're in the United States and many other countries are in the worst of boxes that they can't get. They're in a corner they can't get out of, in my opinion. Okay, then now I've got an article where it says Turkey is facing hyperinflation. Well, the hyperinflation, for those of you that don't know what that means, that's when your currency gets so devalued that you might have to spend 100,000 lira in this case to get a loaf of bread. Where there have been times in history, the Weimar Republic, where they had wheelbarrows of cash in order just to get a loaf of bread. People were literally pushing wheelbarrows to go get a loaf of bread. And what do people do when hyperinflation happens? Traditionally, they've gone for gold and silver, for precious metals. But what I'm here to tell you is, this to me is the big, big, big picture. And that is, digital assets are going to open a new avenue. And it's in a large part of the reason digital assets are going to open a new avenue for escape routes from these governments and what they've done is because of the movability of digital assets. Gold and silver, those are easily confiscated. You can't move with them. And I believe that is a huge part of the reason that this, in the short run, all of this talk is going to could easily trigger a huge bull run in cryptocurrencies, and it likely will. Like I said, in history, recessions happen on average every 6 years. They have been able to put it off by being extremely irresponsible economically. But that just means they haven't put off all they've done is put off something that's going to be much worse. Okay, moving along. Many of you are familiar with the guy that wrote a book, I believe it was in the 90s, and it was called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. His name's Robert Kiyosaki, and he's a very common sense guy. And in a nutshell, his book was about, I think he had an adopted dad, as I recall. Don't quote me. I think he had a not adopted dad. I think he had a stepdad and his real dad, and I think one of them was really smart and he learned everything from. And he compared and contrasted his rich dad, which I think, as I recall, was the stepdad, and then his poor dad, who was his actual father. But anyway, he watched them both and learned the lessons from them. But this guy's very common sense. But look in the title of this. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Bullish on Bitcoin, calls Fiat a scam. And the truth is that there's your dirty little secret, is that ever since, and he mentions it down here, right here, there's so much fake money. In 1971, Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard and the US dollar became fake money. Well, the US dollar is the world's reserve currency, and because the US dollar is fake money, all of the other ones are fake money too. The fiat, that is. And these fiat, the governments, they will tell you that they try to scare you, the Jamie Dimons of the world, they try to scare you with, crypto, that's a scam. No. When you put something out that has a finite amount, and this world, money is all about trust. Well, When he took when Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard, all that meant was that he could print money at will, and the United States has done that ever since, and the governments of the world have done that ever since. So if I have XRP over here, then I know what the supply is, and I know that some of it's going to be burned. And I've got a choice. I can put money in XRP, where I know that there's going to be money come in, but they can't print any more of it. What happens? It's very common sense, supply and demand. Well, over here, the dollar can be printed at will and is being printed. It's being printed while you watch this video. Dollars at a time, just print. Okay? And so you need to really think about that. Okay? Now I'm gonna wrap this all together in a nice bow, so keep on paying attention. Kim.com. Now this guy I think he was a German. He's like a genius technology guy, and he tweeted this out. But up here is the title. He says, invest in Bitcoin before the U.S. debt spirals out of control. He says $1 trillion in additional U.S. government debt per year. The U.S. spending is funded by lenders who will never get paid. U.S. empire will collapse, followed by a worldwide economic collapse. And then he tells you to look at the U.S. debt clock. Well, I happen to have the U.S. debt clock. Let's look at that. This U.S. debt is at $21.3 trillion. $21.3 trillion. Okay? I think I may have gotten my slide out of order, but I'm gonna get rid of this, and then I want to show you something here. We're at $21.3 trillion, and we're in an environment where interest rates have nowhere to go but up. They have to raise interest rates. At some point, inflation is going to kick in, and I think it's kicking in right now, and they are going to be forced to raise interest rates, at which time they have to carry this debt load. They have to pay interest on this debt. When they have to pay interest on that debt, where do you think it's going to come from as it becomes unsustainable? Watch this. This is the U.S. debt ceiling. It has risen no matter who's in office. Okay? Whether you're Obama fan, a Trump fan, it doesn't matter. Look at this. Nixon, Ford, Carter, Reagan, Bush. The debt has gone up. The Obama, who right here during the financial crisis, think about this for a minute. We've been told that they got us out of the debt crisis and, we're all saved. Okay? That's what we've been told. The U.S. debt was down here around, which was already ridiculous, $7 or $8 trillion before the financial crisis. Like I just showed you, we're now at $21 trillion. And like I said, whether you like Trump or don't like Trump is irrelevant, because this is a management of debt problem now. It's no longer a pay down your debt problem. They can't pay it down, and they know it. And that's the scary, dirty secret. Okay, go to here. I want you to understand, in economics, I'm going to read this to you because you need to understand what a debt to GDP ratio is. In economics, the debt to GDP ratio is the ratio between a country's government debt, a cumulative amount, and its gross domestic product, the money it brings in, measured in years. A low debt to GDP ratio indicates an economy that produces and sells goods and services sufficient to pay back debts without incurring further debt. Let's look at the debts of the world. This is the country list, government debt to GDP. Okay, now Turkey, who we've just seen, there are articles already being written about Turkey and their how they are on the verge of hyperinflation. Let me see, Turkey's in the list because I found it earlier. Let me make sure I can find it again. Anyway, while I'm looking for it, it was about 28%. Turkey's debt to GDP, there it is, sorry. Turkey's debt to GDP is 28.3%. Well, they are near hyperinflation, as the article I just showed you said. Let's see what the United States debt to GDP is. It's way on up here. Way on up here. United States, 105. 105. That means that our debt is such that it's higher than the money we have coming in. That should be very scary, but I want to make one other point to XRP holders. Do you know where XRP is bigger than anywhere? In the country of Japan. Japan's citizens face a debt to GDP ratio of 253%. It's the worst in the world. In other words, this country's citizens have a higher percentage chance of facing hyperinflation of anybody in the world at some point in the near future. This country's citizens. And guess who lives in this country? The people who will have access to SBI digital virtual currencies, which has XRP as their main trading pair. SBI, as I've told you many times before, SBI is our bird in the hand. This reason right here I've never given you before, but this right here could very well be the biggest reason of all of them, that Japan could be a huge part of why XRP explodes in the future. Okay, I wanted to go over something else with you because this all ties in. And I've told you this before, but I have many new subscribers and you need to let it sink in and sink in very well. We're all familiar with the bailouts that occurred back during the financial crisis, but you need to be familiar with this as well because this is what's very, very creepy. Okay? The bail-in, how you and your money will be parted during the next banking crisis. Okay? What they talk about in this, okay? What they're talking about is how the statutes have been written so that next time, if you remember, I remember it like it was yesterday in the United States when Hank Paulson went to Congress to ask them for bailouts to save the world from an economic collapse. Okay, Hank Paulson went to Congress and he literally got down on his knees to beg Nancy Pelosi to pass the bailout measure, to bail out. It was something like $700 billion. Okay, the governments learned from that they could not be put in that position again. Okay, and so what they've done is they've gone behind the scenes and they have passed statutes so that the next time, and it's already happened, and I'm going to show you how it's already happened. The next time that they print your money into oblivion, and the next time that they put us into debts that we cannot afford irresponsibly, just so that they can keep throwing out all these government programs and not do the responsible thing. The next time they do that, they have set it up so that they can literally shut your bank down, shave a percentage of your savings out of your bank account, and then reopen the bank. And you wake up the next day and you've just lost 10, 20, whatever percent they decide of your money. It's been stolen out of your bank account. Okay? And if you think I'm crazy and you think this can't happen, it's already happened. It happened in Cyprus. Okay? But I also want you to know what happened to digital assets when it happened. And this is what happened. It happened back in 2013. Cyprus was having a debt crisis. And what they did is they literally shut down the bank accounts in Cyprus, and they shaved off, I can't remember the exact percentage, but they closed down the bank. I don't know. I think it was okay, here it is. They took 20%. No, wait, that's wrong. Not that was something else in here. I believe it was 20%. It was either 10 or 20%. But anyway, the point is that they took 10 or 20% out of the bank accounts of those people in Cyprus, and there was nothing that those people could do about it. And mark my words, the second that they set this precedent, mark my words, the irresponsible governments of the world saw that and said, that's what we're going to do if we ever get in that situation. Well, guess what happens if you have a digital asset wallet in that situation? Guess what happens if you have a Ledger Nano S, which you can buy in the description of this video? They can't do it. They couldn't do it if they wanted to. And that's part of the reason the governments of the world are so scared of these digital assets. It's not, the fact of the matter is that not whether you're a U.S. citizen or any citizen of the world, we're not interested in avoiding taxes. I'm fine with, I want to pay my taxes. That's not why we invest in digital assets. One of the huge reasons we invest in these digital assets is for our own protection from our own governments. These people have destroyed our money over the last 50 years, and this is the responsible thing, the responsible response to that. So look at this. And this is the final word on this I want to tell you about. When that happened in Cyprus, I remember it because I was investing in these digital assets back then. Bitcoin went crazy because of Cyprus, because everybody saw what happened as a reaction to what they did, shaving money out of these people's bank accounts. And Bitcoin went crazy because they saw it as a safe haven that they could run to. And it'll happen on a much larger scale when the next financial crisis happens, which could happen at any time because they didn't fix the first one. Okay, moving along. I want to go over a couple of things with some of you. I've never done this before, but I want to go over a couple of alternative ways that you can invest in blockchain. And the reason I want to do this is because I did it myself. And the reason I did it, I have an IRA, okay, and I have it myself, and I control it. It's not through. I don't have it through like a company. It's mine that I manage myself. Well, when you have cash in these, I couldn't like go and buy XRP, of course, right now because it's not an option. Well, to get exposure to blockchain, whether it's Bitcoin or blockchain in general, you do have some options. So in my case, and I'm not telling you to do this or anything, but this is what I did today. Actually, I bought into a couple of things just because. I mean, I would put it in XRP if I could, but this is money I have in an IRA. I don't have an option of putting it in XRP. But this right here is a Bitcoin investment trust. It's from Grayscale, and when you put money into it, for every share you're getting this amount of Bitcoin basically. But it's just it's another way to invest into Bitcoin or blockchain technology. And then I wanted to show you this other one, and the symbol for this is GBTC, by the way. Grayscale puts it out, but it's pretty cool. I did it today. I just thought it was a pretty neat way to invest. This one right here is really cool too. The symbol for this is block. It's put out by Amplify ETFs. But here's what's pretty cool about it. What this one does, it invests in companies that are investing heavily in the blockchain space. But you'll find this interesting as an XRP holder. The top 10 holdings of this fund, it's an ETF, it shows you their top 10 holdings. SBI is one of the holdings. So you can kind of indirectly get a little bit of exposure even to XRP through this. Since SBI Holdings owns a portion of XRP, or Ripple, and in turn XRP. I personally invested in a little bit in both of these, and I just thought it was pretty interesting. I would pass it along. I wanted to close with this. In this market, the way it's been, this is I saw this on Twitter. This guy, Yassine Mubarak, he says, if this bear market got you down, just remember, defining moments in life occur when faced with the choice of giving up or carrying on. Stay strong and positive, my friends. And I thought this was just such a great illustration, because I do believe that you are just this close to your acres of diamonds, as I've mentioned in the past. Well, I am the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor, and this is for entertainment purposes only. If you guys would, please subscribe. And as I said, you need to get your own personal hardware wallet. The Ledger Nano S, go in the description of my video and get a Ledger Nano S. It's the safest way to hold your digital assets. I personally set up two or three Ledger Nano S's this weekend. You can store. I was helping somebody do it. I stored Bitcoin, Stellar, Tron, and XRP on one this weekend. They're really cool, and these guys are getting better and better at the way the interface and the way this is set up. Go in the description of my video and you can pick yourself one up. Thank you guys for listening. I will be back.